from high atop 1926 Hollywood Boulevard, you're listening to SoFloRadio.com. SoFloRadio.com presents CEOmanship, becoming a leader in today's business world, with your host, Steve Gordon, CEO of Gordon Partnership Group, an international business consulting firm specializing in CEO bootcamp, sales team training, as well as client growth and retention. Visit GordonPartnershipGroup.com. Gordon Partnership Group. Your success is our business. And now, here's your host, Steve Gordon.
It is so good to be back here. It's Monday. It's 82 degrees in Florida, and I'm Steve Gordon.
Outside, it's 82 degrees.
It's about 94 in here.
Yeah, well, I had to wear my parka because it's always cold in here. Our thermostat's like a busy box.
I have news for you. It's not always cold in here. It's brutally hot, but I understand.
Okay,
because you're more of a Floridian than I am.
Yes, I lost my ability to endure cold. I'm a lizard. I bake on rocks.
Here's the deal, right? So here I am. I'm driving down Hollywood Boulevard, and I look down. The top on my car is down, and I look at my dashboard, and it says 82 degrees. It's sunny, and if I keep driving past the studio, which I have to say, George, if it weren't for you, because I love this show,
it's the winning spot.
I would tell you I'd keep driving a little bit further, and I'd be right on the beach.
Sure. Well, I go right here. Just keep going down the boulevard.
I know.
There it is.
Hey,
beach,
I want to ask you a question.
You live right by it.
You know, well, I want to finish my story, but don't forget to ask you the question about the food trucks. All right.
Okay.
So that's your job to remember that. So I'm driving, and I'm thinking to myself that all morning you're writing that down. You're such a good.
This is important.
You're good.
Producer type.
So all morning I'm getting these emails from where I used to live in Connecticut.
It's because I might forget it later.
Okay. So I get these emails, George, and they all say, this gym will be open at 11 o'clock, then 12 o'clock, then 1 o'clock, due to the inclement weather, due to the snow. And I have become such an obnoxious Floridian now because I'm only here.
You're a weather snob.
I am a weather snob. Now I understand why for years my father would call me like every time, and he would pretend. He'd call me when it was gorgeous here and it was snowing there. And he'd say, "Hey, Steve, how's it going?" I go, "Good, Dad. A little bit snow. We're stuck in the house. Just 2 feet,
right.
No big deal. Power went out. We have no food, and dogs are shivering, but it's all good."
Right?
And
he'd go,
I go, "How are you, Dad?" And he'd go, "Well, yeah, it's horrible here. It's like 72 degrees. We can't even go in the pool." And I'm like, "Okay, this call is over, Dad."
Yeah, a friend invited me over for a barbecue the other day. It wasn't a heated pool. I thought, what a horrible person you are. Inviting me to your non-heated pool. That's a Florida problem.
Well, my pool's not heated,
yeah.
But I'd rather have a non-heated pool than snow.
No, that's obnoxious Florida joke. So
So
speaking of heated,
yeah,
is that a good
there you
segue? Because I got mine off camera over here.
All right, we'll get to that in a minute.
Okay, I didn't want to interrupt your agenda.
Well, I want to ask you about some stuff that you had going on this weekend. But I notice when I leave the studio sometimes, if I should continue straight and not make the U-turn right here at the end of Hollywood,
okay,
then at the Circle, there's that was like a pubescent
little
I
there. Your voice just broke.
At 52. At the Circle, there are all of these food trucks. I mean, amazing, gourmet food trucks.
Food truck
What's
Mondays.
up with that?
Well, yes, we have Food Truck Mondays. They have another event in Plantation and probably elsewhere too. But I got to hand it to the city of Hollywood. It's one of the reasons that we chose this location for our studios right downtown is they really always they make a concerted effort to always have something going on down there at the Circle every day of the week, or as many days of the week as possible. And it's Food Truck Mondays in downtown Hollywood, and it's great. And some of those food trucks are very good. Personally, I think some of them are a little pricier than they ought to be. That's just the thing. Because when you're out in the middle of nowhere and there's no food to be had, you'll pay $15 for a hamburger. But when you're surrounded by restaurants, you don't need to. And I'm exaggerating a little bit. They don't have $15 hamburgers there. But
I just wanted to say I've noticed that. But then the other piece of the puzzle is I'm a little bit confused. Because I go around the Circle 9 times, and I can't figure out exactly how you get inside to where the food trucks are, and they go,
oh no, there used to be parking in there. They rebuilt, refurbished the park, if you will, so the parking is on the outside perimeter.
That answers the question.
By the way, it's all free parking in downtown Hollywood, a little-known parking area northwest of the Circle, along the golf course. Nobody ever parks there. You're allowed to park there. You can, it's like miles of parking just northwest of the Circle, 1 block away.
Oh,
right?
that's good to know. So, do
Sorry,
you have a particular
Northeast.
favorite food truck? I'm just curious. I mean, these are entrepreneurs, right? I mean, these are
They are entrepreneurs.
moving
There's
restaurants.
there's two of them that I really like. One of them is the A Zimmern. Andrew Zimmern, he's the bald-headed guy
I've
on
never
the
made it
Food
in there.
Network. He's
Oh,
eats
really?
the Strange Things.
Yeah. Oh,
a,
I know him.
A lot of Coglione. A lot like he's got a thing for that. The the buffalo oysters, the Rocky Mountain oysters. He's
okay.
I don't know, but anyway, he's got a food truck with like pork belly sliders and
Okay,
crazy
so
exotic
we're going to
things.
avoid the
The weird thing.
yeah. Let's
You're
go
not- you
from
get- And the other one is of all things a Cuban food truck where you can get the Cuban steak, the pan con bistec, as we say, which is
that's
the
delicious.
pounded steak, the flank steak on some big soft bread with all the lettuce, tomato, the onions, those shoestring potatoes, and everything. And that's actually a very good deal. That's like what drew me to it in the first place was it didn't seem to be gougy. It didn't seem to be gougy price wise there, but it's a really big, good, delicious steak sandwich with all the fixings on it, and that's my favorite. I keep going back there.
It's nothing like having your protein and your salad and everything in one
It's
place.
all in one fell swoop. Yeah, it's
One fell
efficiency
swoop.
sandwiches.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly. Speaking of food, I'm walking out the door today. It's still hot.
smooth segue.
Right?
It is.
So smooth segue. So for those of you who are watching on SoFloTelevision.com, you can see that both George and I have what I guess is referred to as a ball jar filled with homemade soup. And this soup was made by the lovely Lori Gordon, who is a certified holistic health coach and is the founder of the Simply Lori Gordon brand. And, in my home is Superwoman. And so while doing a million other things today, while I'm preparing for the show, I'm walking out the door and says to me, "Do you have enough water?" Because that's the question always. I said,
Sure.
"Yes, right here." I'm holding up my glass, and George has his. And then she said, "Did you eat this morning?" I said, "No. I had a protein shake after I rode my bicycle." And she said, "Come over here." And I'm like, wow, something smells so good. But I figured maybe it was dinner.
Yeah.
And then she says, "Well, you have to bring this for George, not you who only had a protein shake."
Right. Yeah.
And I'm just teasing. So
she's a lovely lady. Excellent timing with this, by the way, because the getting over a cold.
right, George. So George is getting over a little
The
cold.
tail
which
end of
is-
the stuffiness. Is
Well, you have that very sexy sort of
thank you,
morning
little
voice going
husky. Yeah, I should have heard me yesterday. It was I sounded beautiful.
on. Well, it's a gift that I have
downright
all the
sexy.
time. So I'm looking at this and I'm trying to figure out like what's in this and I texted.
And you googled
Lori.
it. You googled
No,
Lori soup, and it's on there.
it's not on. It might be on her website, but
I was
what I
just
did do
scrolling
is
through.
I just texted Lori. So she said, okay, escarole, lentils, sun-dried tomatoes, scallions, onions, celery, cilantro, carrots, rosemary, spices, and fresh garlic. By the way, here's a very interesting thing. I always would say to Lori when we first got together, "Oh, I'm not big on garlic because when you eat a lot of garlic, sometimes it sort of comes out of like
No,
everywhere."
I didn't hear that.
But what she told me
Please
is that when you
expand.
use fresh garlic, the real good garlic, like you crack that clove yourself, that it doesn't smell. And
It doesn't?
if you've never had a fresh baked garlic clove,
I love garlic, but I get those big jars of the roasted.
oh no,
garlic.
you got to get like the real
Yeah,
clove, and then she
that
bakes
sounds-
it, and then it's just it
sounds
comes
like
out,
effort.
It's sweet. No, you just bake it in the oven like in foil.
Sure.
And
Sounds
it's
like you
so
gotta do
good. And I'm
things.
told there are all of these incredible health benefits. It's good for your heart. It's good for your cholesterol. I'm told it's good for your blood pressure.
Vampires, also.
Good for vampires. That's true.
Yes.
None of which, of course, has to do with CEOmanship. But I do want to, since honey, you did send me down with.
I want to thank her for that. That was really, really sweet of her. And this is delicious.
It is amazing. I wish I could actually eat it on the show, but
No, that's bad.
It's bad. It's bad.
Showmanship.
bad CE showmanship. So for those of you who are in Palm Beach County and Martin County, I want to let you know that Lori is speaking tomorrow night at the Jupiter Tequesta Junior Women's Club. I believe, I'm looking real fast, that the meeting starts at 7 o'clock. She's going to be talking about heart health. The meeting is at actually Good Shepherd Episcopal Church. It's on 400 Seabrook Road in Tequesta. And I hope that if any of you are in the area, that you will go to support this group and to support Lori. She's great. She's always on the show. She comes in, or she calls in, and she feeds us. And she always has great advice on how to live a longer, healthier life. So please go support Lori and visit her website. If this recipe's not on there, I bet you it will be before the show's over because I just said it might be. But if not, it'll be there
That's
soon.
power.
And there are some incredible recipes, and you can book a session to actually have Lori consult with you as a holistic health coach to talk to you about how to use food to live longer and healthier.
You're very lucky, that you get to eat like this all the time.
She
it's
a running
gives
joke
you
in
a
my
really
family.
good deal on the advice too. Probably
Yeah.
like a
Well,
friends and family rate.
I get a friends and family rate, right? I get a 30% discount on coaching. But it's interesting because when the running joke is when we first met. Lori is an amazing cook, and she's probably rolling her eyes now listening to the show. But it's true. And when we first met, it was I've said this before on the show. It was like real butter and real cream, and Sundays were like a festival. It was like forget the whole series of food truck Mondays.
Yeah,
there was more food in my house between noon and 5 o'clock. It was just like an ongoing eating fest, right? And it was like meatballs and sausage and all this great food, and then. About a couple of years back, Lori said, I think I'm going to pursue my real dream, which is to be a health coach. And I said, that's great. Little did I know that I would be the recipient of way too much kale, way too many drinks or meals that come out of a whipped up blender, and so much for real butter and all that. Actually, you know what? I tease, and if I don't quantify this very quickly, the phone will ring, and I'm looking already at the computer just to see it doesn't.
Let me know because I'm
you're facing
in this
me.
direction.
But the truth is that everything in moderation, and we will have a combination of all the above. So we'll have this great soup, which is a vegetarian soup tonight for dinner, and yet we could have
So you'll
I
have
had a
to,
steak the
if
other
not
day.
real butter, you'll have to ask her what I'm supposed to use instead. Like unreal butter.
Well, if you're listening, Lori, and you want to call
right.
in, otherwise I'll get you the answer for next week.
We're doing that health questions on Steve's show now.
So, how was your weekend? We didn't have you here
well,
last
I had
week.
a little bit of a cold, so the bad news but good news. I didn't go skating. My daughter was very cool about that, as you know, she's obsessed with that. So I scheduled a makeup day, which is how we do it in radio. This is a broadcasting lesson. In radio, we call it a make good. If for some reason a client's commercial didn't air when it was supposed to air, you make it good by airing it on some other time of equal value. Of course, you don't just gyp the guy.
Right.
So we call them make goods, and so I bring that into my normal life as a parent. If I can't, live up to an obligation or something that's expected, they get a make good, and they understand that, and they're very cool about that. So we schedule a make good. I let her write it on the calendar, and everything's good. But I did get a chance to catch up on some good old fashioned television watching, and I'm loving the History Channel on Netflix now because you can just watch the episodes one after another.
One after the next.
And it made me think of you in this show. It was The Men Who Built America, which was, of course, Rockefeller, Carnegie,
I'm a good
the Vanderbilts, and the Rockefeller, John Rockefeller, and they were contemporaries, so it was not just the story of each of them, but then up to a certain level, their interaction with each other, and jockeying for position and everything. And it was very interesting how they got there, and what they did once they got there, and what their morality was in the latter years of their life. It wasn't what I thought it would be, but it was very, very educational, and I learned some principles about CEOmanship. And the value of ruthlessness.
I love it.
So
no, I don't know. I have to tell you that I'm looking down because I'm getting texted by Lori. So I have some answers, but I want to go back first to your. So have you ever been to Rhode Island?
No, I've not.
So it's unbelievable. So they have all these unbelievable mansions in Rhode Island, and you could actually tour these mansions, and they're incredible. And some of the folks that you just mentioned, this would be where they would go many years ago to escape the city. And so Rhode Island was like the country, and these homes are incredible. So if you ever have that chance, now that you've watched the History Channel, take that trip. And I bet your daughter would love that trip too.
Been to the Biltmore Estate, North Carolina, America's biggest house. That one where they filmed Being There and everything.
Yeah,
nice place. No, sorry, just as far as nice houses go. Back to. Do I get answers?
So here's your answers. The first is that Lori mentioned to me, and that's Lori Gordon of simplylorigordon.com. You see I'm sucking up because I'm going to get in trouble, so I'm giving those extra plugs. So Lori said, if you must use butter, use real butter.
Okay,
And,
that's what I thought.
And so the only reason I'm getting these texts is that she's just getting ready for tomorrow's speech or tomorrow's talk. And then the next text came in and it said, "And Steve," I don't know if I'm supposed to read this, "I would never give you the same thing for dinner." And I believe that's a smiley face, I think. It says, "I'm making something else with it if you want that soup again." No, it's really good, honey. I wasn't bragging, I swear. Okay, so
You got
anyway,
a nerve.
I got trouble now. So again, for those of you who have never listened to the show before, my name is Steve Gordon, and I am the CEO of the Gordon Partnership Group. And CEOmanship is the radio and television show for business owners and CEOs and upper management. And when George and I aren't talking about food trucks, or mansions, we do discuss things that are very relevant to helping you grow your business and your bottom line. As the CEO of the Gordon Partnership, I should tell you that not only will we come in and work with you as a business owner or a CEO to personally help you grow your business. If you don't need us face-to-face or you're out of town, we can do all this through video conferencing. We do it all the time. We are right there, your success, as we say, is our business. So please don't forget, after the show, you can visit CEOmanship, and you can download a copy of today's episode, or you can watch or listen to dozens of past episodes, including several with Lori Gordon of simplylorigordon.com. Also, when you're on the website, which is CEOmanship.com or GordonPartnership.com, if you subscribe to our newsletter, you'll also have access to a special area on the website where you can listen to a weekly audio podcast called Elevations. It's not just for business owners, but it is for your personal growth and to help you with your belief and so much more. So please subscribe to our newsletter and take advantage of the new Elevations audio podcast. Speaking of podcast, this show becomes an iTunes podcast as soon as it's over. So if you go to iTunes, you can listen or subscribe by going to iTunes.com and just searching for Gordon Partnership. You can also find us on Facebook, Gordon Partnership, Twitter, follow Steve Gord, Instagram, Gordon Partnership, LinkedIn, search for Steve Gordon and Gordon Partnership. Also on LinkedIn, don't forget to search for simply Lori Gordon. And as I mentioned, our website, CEOmanship and GordonPartnership.com. So, interesting. This past week, a very, very good family friend, in fact, probably Lori's longest-term friend, found herself in a situation where a company that she was working for called her and said, "You know what, this is the position that we promised you the world," and they wined and dined her for a very, very long time. They decided within a very short period of time that they were going to let a few people go, and unfortunately let her go. And so that night, she called Lori, and she was really upset, and we had a good conversation, and she said, "Well, I've got to get a job." And literally within a couple of days, George, found a new job that was better, didn't require travel, paid her, I'm trying to do the math in my head, so I'm looking at about 10 to 12% more than she was paying. And it's a very, very cool company. In fact, I'm going to throw them a plug because it's a cool company and because this is our friend. And you can go download this app. It's called Health Jump. And while I wasn't prepared to do a commercial for Health Jump, I guess I'm going to now. And essentially, this is a great app because what it allows you to do is to track all your medical records. And you can communicate with your doctor through your iPhone or your smartphone, and you can request prescriptions. And really what's great for people our age is that if your parents are here and they're alive, it gives you the opportunity also as a child to track your senior parents' records as well to make sure that they're getting all their drugs, they're taking their medication. I mean, there's a lot to it, and it's a pretty cool company. And they're sort of in the combination stage of gathering the patients and the doctors so that there's a groundswell of communication. But that's not what the story was about. What it made me think about was the process by which one goes out and gets a job. And then I started thinking about the cost to a company of hiring. And then I started thinking about the cost to a company of losing an employee. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about how we could actually use this information to make sure that we get good hires. So, when you think about hiring an employee, most people, George, only think about the salary as the cost of that hire, right? So,
Right.
so if somebody makes $50,000 a year, then we go, okay, well, if that person's hired and then we lose them, then okay, that's a $50,000. Or if we paid them half a year, $25,000, that was our cost to the company. But that could not be further from the truth. There is so much greater cost to the corporation. And so I wanted to just share some statistics. And as a business owner, I want to talk to you about making the right choices for employees, because when you understand what a wrong choice could cost you, you're going to realize that it's better to take a little more time and do it right the first time. So there are a lot of non-wage costs associated with a hire, which are often overlooked. So here's a couple that we can talk about just very, very quickly. The first is how much that employee is going to cost you in taxes, because when you're paying them, you unless they're 1099, which means they're an independent contractor and they're not really an employee, then you have to pay taxes. The cost of sickness in both sick days as well as healthcare costs. So if somebody is out and then they're not doing their job, you're still paying their salary, and so there's a cost there without the actual work being done. You are being charged, and these days a lot of money to have folks on their on your healthcare plan. Legal fees, and then there's a whole bunch of miscellaneous red tape. So there was a study that was published by the Center for Economics in the United Kingdom, and it stated that the first hire for a corporation, so the first employee, so your next person, if you had nobody else working here for you, is the most expensive. And then the cost per employee drops down, and it can be quite substantially as your company gets larger and larger and larger. So I'm just looking at some statistics here. And so the cost for a company with one hire, an individual, is around $57,000 a year. Now, that's an average. Obviously, some companies are that could be a $10 an hour person. And for other companies, it could be, somebody who runs your corporation for you, and it could be a $100,000 a year employee. So it's about $57,000. However, for a business, a typical business, George, that has 20, 30, 40, maybe, but not quite 50 employees, that cost actually drops to about $40,000 per employee per year. So the greater the number of employees, jumping from 1 to almost 50, you cut that cost by a third. And you can see that a lot of that is because you're sharing a lot of expenses between that multiple employees.
I was going to say, is it just because you're getting better at it?
Well, that could be too. One reason is, again, the smaller company. In the smaller company, the greater percentage of that cost goes into taxes and administrative costs. And of course, as I said before, as you continue to add more employees, then what happens is those costs become diluted, and so that lowers the average. So let's look at, say, for example, a middle manager, somebody who might earn, let's say, $65,000 a year. All right, obviously in Los Angeles or New York or Chicago or Miami, it might be more, and in certain parts of the country, it could be less. If that person either quits or is terminated in about a 2.5-year period, believe it or not, here are some staggering true costs for that employee. So if you take into account, for example, the cost of the hire,
Mm-hmm.
and then that was a very, I'm interested.
Yeah.
And their total compensation, their pay, and the cost for maintaining that employee, and then what I like to refer to as disruption costs, right? So, which could be a severance.
Okay.
All right. So,
That gets into legal.
Well, that's right. And then here's the other thing. Folks who run companies, depending upon your experience and depending upon the size of your corporation and depending upon how long you've been doing this, you might not take into account this last one, because this is one of those sort of quiet, goes under the radar expenses. But the cost of mistakes, because if it's a bad hire, there could be mistakes or things that have to be duplicated. The cost of failures, And here's the other one: missed opportunity.
Okay.
Now, you and I were, without getting into great detail today, you were actually having a conversation over the years where you've had some folks in here that you've worked with.
I was going to say, or did you create this show just around my issues?
I didn't, and so I want anybody listening who may have ever worked with you, George, to know we're not talking about anyone in particular.
In particular, no, but just all of them in general.
All of them in general. There you go.
How's that?
But we were talking about
you kind of
two
summed
things.
them up right there. Yeah,
I summed them up.
You summed them up.
Is mup a word?
you summed them up.
This is radio, George. Anyway, so so missed opportunity. To me, you and I were having a conversation earlier. We were talking about the fact that there have been several situations where, can I share this on the air?
Sure.
Even though it's too late now because I just opened this can of worms.
Absolutely.
Well, we talked about the fact that there have been people who've come in and said, we can do this, we can do that, and then they didn't.
Right.
Or the cost of because this is a business. I know
Sure.
that
I know.
I know with the first show we ever did. For those of you listening, who are not been with us since the very beginning, if you go to CEOmanship.com
episode
and
1.
go all the way back to episode 1, which you just hit the older, just keep the tab that says
keep
older
on going.
shows, and on that first show we talked about business, and you said, I love what I do, and
Sure.
I'm really good at what I do, and you're excellent.
Thank you.
I love coming here and working with you because it's always professional, and you do a great job of making all of us on air look good.
Thank you.
But you said you are admittedly not
Right.
I think you said a good businessman.
Right. I don't consider myself a good businessman. I didn't.
Or I guess we should say good business person.
Business person. Correct. I didn't set out to be a business person. I set out to be in show business, and there is no more misunderstood business than show business. Is what I found out, and that's what a lot of people don't know. So that's to your point. I try to operate like a business, but everyone has an incredible misconception about how this business operates.
Well, at the end of the day, if we go back to lost opportunities, right? So I said missed opportunities, but lost opportunities.
Sure.
You and I were talking last week over lunch, and you were saying that there is a cost of doing business for every single show.
Sure.
And then if that cost plus some profit is not earned, then you could be doing other things to generate substantially more money and let somebody else run the show.
Well, I think that's the case with anybody. You could,
that's right.
When you wake up in the morning, you could either be doing something for money or be at the beach doing something for fun. You have those options. Everyone has those options.
That's true. Well, I've often talked about on this show that given the opportunity, for example, if I know that I can do something that can earn me, let's just say hypothetically $100 an hour.
Sure.
And I can hire somebody to maybe cut my lawn, and it takes an
Right.
hour, and they want $50, then that's a good business decision because letting somebody else do that work
Certainly.
allows
that was
me.
explained to me as a young man why he doesn't mow his own lawn. It's like because that was exactly the analogy. I make this much an hour. I can pay much less than that to have someone else do it to free me up to spend time with my children. And,
There you go.
It's a wonderful. It's a wonderful thing that.
So we were talking about missed opportunities and the fact that, again, those missed opportunities could be opportunities for advertising, opportunities for even you as the owner and the primary producer of most, if not all, the shows on here now, and you could also be out there generating revenue, but you choose to be in here with me.
Well, I would rather. There are things, I'm sure that even you, there are things that you would take less money for because you enjoy them that much. And I think that's another decision in our lives.
Yeah.
There are things that all of us could, if for example, if we had no conscience, all of us could probably be making a lot more money than we do in any of our endeavors. If you put your thumb on the scale, if you cut corners, but we have what we're willing to do for money,
Right.
and then also what we enjoy, because I really enjoy producing shows. I really do, and I would would rather do that for less money than working a job for someone else. It's not very personally rewarding.
Well, and that's one of the things I have to explain when I sit with a potential client and they say, well, how much is this going to cost me for your firm to work with us? And I say, well, if I can show you that you'll make more than it costs, then it doesn't cost you anything.
Right. It's, as a matter of fact, it's profit. Exactly.
There you go. So, it's all checks and balances. It's weighing that scale,
Sure.
and all I have to do is make
it's
sure I
math.
deliver. And for those of you who are interested in growing your business, we will show you that it's worth the investment. We've had great success with our clients. We love what we do. But let me get back here. So, going back to...
I thought you were talking about me with those other points, too, there. The people that cost you money parts?
No. So going back, I was talking about that $65,000 a year employee gets terminated after 2.5 years, and I gave you all the kind of hidden costs, right? You're looking at about a $7,000 to $8,000 cost for that employee, right? So or upwards. So your return on your investment is actually about a negative 300. For those of you who are listening live, we had a little bit of disjointed, we kind of segued for a minute. So you might have to kind of go back and listen to like the beginning and the end without the middle part to do the math on that. But if you figure out your hiring cost is around $250,000, hiring plus cost to maintain that employee, and then your value of contribution, I figured out is about $125,000. If your contribution is $125, but your cost is $250, then you're not doing so great. You need that person to be bringing in $375.
Sure.
Then that would be a good deal.
And not bringing equipment.
That's right. That's right. So it's estimated that in recent years alone, just in America, corporations have spent over $125 billion with a B on employee learning and development. And so, when you talk about the cost per employee turnover, a small business with, say, 60, 70 employees, 75 employees, but under 100, but more than 50. The cost of turnover is just shy of about $8,000 per employee. And 1/3 or more of all employees have some type of non-office hour communication with their supervisors, and 44% of those employees are feeling overworked. Do you ever feel overworked, George?
No, not lately.
No, there you go. And so what happens is that often we as employers, or you as employers, when somebody does leave, you take that workload before you can replace that person, and you put it onto another good employee, which makes them both resentful because they're doing more work and not getting paid.
Sure.
And also it makes them feel sort of bogged down and exhausted. So we don't want to do that. Let's go to a break right now. This is Steve Gordon. You're listening to CEOmanship on SoFloRadio.com.
Put a team of professional consultants behind your home or business computer with Key Information Solutions, providing solutions to your internet and computing needs while keeping you on the cutting edge of technology. Preventative maintenance and networking support, hardware and custom-built computers. Let Key Information Solutions be your personal tech staff for your home or office with affordable hourly, monthly, or annual rates to fit anyone's budget. Call Key Information Solutions now. 954-973-3374. That's 954-973-3374. Or visit keyinformation.com.
When you're ready to actually lose weight safely and steadily while being monitored by a physician, the Weight Loss Clinic of Dr. Kim Jacobson is there for you. The family medicine practice was established by her father in 1956 and continues as a medical practice that now specializes in weight reduction. Dr. Kim Jacobson joined the practice 20 years ago as both a family medicine practitioner and weight loss specialist. The Weight Loss Clinic utilizes a combination of appetite suppression medication and vitamins to produce great results, usually 3 to 4 pounds per week for most patients. Now you can change your lifestyle while still enjoying your own food, just less of it. They offer a choice of 2, 3, or 4-week plans. So whether you just need to lose a few pounds or a lot, the Weight Loss Clinic of Dr. Kim Jacobson can help you. They're located at 5454 Northeast 4th Avenue in Miami, just 2 blocks west of 54th Street and Biscayne Boulevard. Call them at 305-751-0091. They'll be happy to answer any and all of your questions. That's 305-751-0091. Get started on a beautiful new body today with Dr. Kim Jacobson and the Weight Loss Clinic.
Now, back to CEOmanship with Steve Gordon on SoFloRadio.com.
Okay, we are back, and thank you. Gave me a chance to have a little bit of that soup. So
I saw that, boy. You didn't even get any on you.
Yeah, I know.
It's a good thing I put that other that screenshot of the logo up during that.
I noticed. I looked up first to make sure that they couldn't see me eating because that's true. So we were talking about employees, the cost of hiring, the cost of firing, and let's talk about other ways that employee turnover costs hurt you. So here's some of the true costs of a bad hire that are often hidden. Lower productivity. All right. So if somebody leaves, again, as I just sort of ended last segment with, that position, then what they were doing is now vacant, and so who's doing that work is always somebody who is good, and it's always like, oh, George, you could do this, and we just pile on two people's work on you, and George is such a good guy, he just like, okay, no problem.
Yep.
Until one day he loses it, and then he quits.
That's right. Oh, okay, yeah, or that.
All right, so there you go. Or, as I mentioned, they feel overworked. So here's another piece, though. Lost knowledge. So we have people who maybe they aren't the greatest employees, but even though there are a lot of people that can do their job, we can replace them with somebody who technically can type on a keypad or, answer the phone or sell or do these things. The new people don't have his or her knowledge. They don't know the people that the old person knew. They don't have the contacts, the relationships, and frankly, they don't know the company culture and protocol, which I think is really, really important. We're going to talk a lot about protocol and culture in a few minutes. Training costs. It costs money. For example, some companies take new hires and they send them out to a training seminar. And, I'm using the low number of $1,000 to send someone. But, of course, we know that that's far low. But even if you don't send a new hire out for training, there are costs of training that hire. Just the manpower, woman power to sit with somebody. And again, if I've got to sit with you and spend 3 hours as the HR person going over all new policies and protocols and teaching you about your actual position, then guess what? That's 3 hours that I'm getting paid for that I'm not doing other things that I could be doing. There are interview costs. There's always the question, do we use a recruiter or do we not? I happen to believe that the cost of a recruiting service is far less expensive than the mistake of a bad hire. Really? I do. And again, it's all about getting the right person in the right position.
Does a recruiting service use how do they work the payment for that? A percentage of the
it's a percentage
position?
Typically. I can't speak for everybody, but the typical recruiting service or executive recruiting service gets a percentage of the first year's salary.
Okay.
So, and here's the other thing. If you're hiring somebody who's an upper level management person, an EVP, a COO, a CTO, a CMO, a vice president, or a CEO, or a CFO. I think I've got all the.
I think you got all
acronyms.
the O's.
Oh boy, the benefit of an executive search firm is that they have the database. Why would you try, look, you go on Craigslist and post an ad looking for an executive vice president? You might.
You might.
but at the end of the day, it's like I always tell people, you could go fishing in your bathtub, George, right? And technically, if you had a rod and a reel and you dropped the hook with a worm on it in your bathtub, you are fishing. Or you could go out in the Atlantic Ocean down the street from us, and you could go fishing on the back of a charter boat. And in either case, you're fishing. But the likelihood is you're only going to catch fish in one place.
Right.
Unless you've stocked your bathtub. But you know what I'm saying, right?
Who's letting you in my house? Somebody
go.
been talking? You found my bass farm?
I did not find your bass farm. All right, so we're talking about recruiters versus bad hires. There was a study that showed that 16% of an annual salary for is for a high turnover, low-paying jobs, under $30,000. Another study showed, for example, the cost to replace a $10 employee then would be about $3,000. That's your hourly. So people go, oh, I'm just hiring kids to work at my retail store, or it's just a bunch of kids in the neighborhood. But every time that kid flakes out, or because they're not responsible, they weren't looking for anything more than a couple of bucks to buy their new whatever, like a new radio for their car or something, then you got to think that's costing you an extra $3,000. It's not the $10 an hour. And I tried to have that discussion with a business owner actually in Jupiter, where I live, and I won't get into any more detail. But I gave them a proposal because they were looking for a store manager, and they had some success, but they had a lot of young kids, and he wanted somebody a little more mature. And I said, well, I'll find you that person, and I will place the ads, and my company will interview, we'll do all the work, and we will deliver to you that person who's looking for a career. And I said, this is what it's going to cost you. And they said, well, thanks, but no thanks. We'll go out and do it ourselves. Now, if you know that the cost of management turnover is probably, if we know it's $3,000 for a $10 an hour employee, and we talked about some of the statistics later on, for example, the cost to replace a $200,000 a year CEO is close to $100,000. So let's take that middle manager in the middle. Maybe it costs $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 to replace them. That was far less than the fee I was charging, and yet they didn't get it because all they saw was the expense and not the return on their investment, which was a long-term employee who might even, as I told them, be willing to work out a deal where they could sort of work to own that business because this person wanted to transition out. And I thought, what a great idea. Let's get the right person at the right age who would be willing to maybe put in 5 years or 10 years, where the first few years they're working, the next few years they're working and paying a percentage of that income back to the owner.
Sure.
So that now they've sort of put a down payment on the business. But that was then. So let's talk about why employees quit, right? So here's some of the reasons, the biggest reasons that your employees are leaving you. Number one, no real vision. In a lot of companies, in most companies, only a very, very small group of people wake up each morning and think to themselves, wow, let's talk about the company profits today. What I've got to contribute, what I do contributes to the bottom line. For most people, their job is their job because they've never been given the vision. They don't have that vision. But you got to remember, vision feeds profits, not the other way around. Another reason people quit is they have no real connection to the big picture. The best workplaces give employees a sense of purpose, and they make them feel like they belong, and they make everybody feel important, from the most menial job, which isn't menial because to that person,
right,
it's
got
a
to
great
be done.
job.
If it's a job, it needs
That's
to,
right.
Right.
Up to the 6 or 7 figure a year earner. No empathy. The employees. Employees today, we know we're not working for 40 years to get that gold Rolex like our dads and moms and grandparents and all that stuff. So what do they want? They want to know that you care as an employer. They want to know that you care, and so they want to know as a manager that your door is not only open, but your ears are open and you're listening because everybody wants to feel like A, they belong, and B, as I said, they're important, and C, that their input is important. And that goes whether you're talking to your children or your spouse or you're talking to an employee or your employer. No effective motivation. All right? I've always said this. Money is not the biggest motivator. People will work more for that recognition to feel important. Here's another reason people quit. I think this is a very big one. That there's no future, or it appears that there is no future. Studies, we look at kids coming out of college today, and there's a whole group of people sort of my age, the baby boomers, that when you ask them, they look at the kids in their 20s, the Gen X, the Gen Ys, and they go, oh, they're lazy, the Gen Ys. They want to be the boss the first day they're hired. The truth of the matter is these young people are looking for a couple things. They want security. They need our generation to teach them, look, they're great with certain things. Like they can download an app.
Sure.
But most of them don't have any idea how the app actually works. So, our generation has a lot to offer the young generation. But what I've found is, in a lot of studies, that the young people today in their 20s and early 30s, they actually want that job security and they want a career path. They may be a little anxious to get to the next level, but that's because we are an instant gratification society. So you got to make sure that your employees see that there is a path with a future, because if there's no future, then they're going to look somewhere else where the grass looks greener.
Right. Well, that approach might work better than threats of violence, which is what I've been using lately. So I'll give that a whirl.
I believe, George, that if you told people that there are opportunities here to grow this corporation and to be a part of something big, well, doesn't that sound better?
It is.
Yeah, see?
Then
I just saw
I'll
you
hurt
smile.
you.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, I actually worked for as a consultant for a company where they really did. I mean, it was like constant threats. I was saying over and over, you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't. People aren't motivated by,
Kidnapping, their children.
basically being emotionally and mentally abused.
Sure.
But these guys didn't get it, and so I had to sever that relationship because I just felt like I didn't want to be part of that.
It's all too common, I think, especially in Florida.
Okay. So another reason that employees quit is it's not fun, right? So perhaps what you need to do as an employer is to think outside the box a little bit, right? So this means maybe reinventing your work environment. I mean, there are some incredible corporations. I've never actually been to Google, but I'm told that it's very cool. And I saw a show once where I believe it was Google. You can even there's little areas for naps and all this other stuff where you can sort of recharge your body so that you can be creative again, because that's what they want.
Great idea.
And when people are relaxed and they're fun and they look forward to work and they don't feel like it's a grind, then they're going to be more productive. A lot of companies are getting rid of that 9 to 5 structure. They're allowing families to work where it's less stress, especially if husband and wife are both working and they've got children, so that they can cross cover. So that they're blurring that line between work and play. And a lot of companies are also figuring out alternatives to that long commute.
Right.
So
I guess I'll just have to move the studio closer to the beach in order to do
or closer to Jupiter where I live. That would be better for me.
There's a beach up there.
There is a beach up there, and you're welcome to walk on our beach. Here's another one: poor management. There's a saying, George, that people do not leave companies; people leave people. And I have seen that over and over and over in my career, not in my personal career, but consulting corporations where great employees have left because even though the company was great, the product was great, the environment was great, the person they reported to wasn't. And nobody wants to spend. I mean, let's face it, we spend the majority of our waking hours every single week at work. So if it's not perceived as joyful,
right,
or worse yet, if it's perceived as really ugly, then why would you want to go there? All right, so better managers, I believe, are much better communicators. We talked earlier about too much work, burnout. Again, when you get a good employee, often the manager, to make him or herself look better, will load that good employee up with extra work. And that just causes resent and burnout. So don't overload your best players. So then we get to the question, okay, so where do we find these good employees, right? And so one of the things we talked about before were executive search firms. And I believe, again, going back to you could be fishing or you could be fishing, right? Bathtub, right. Ocean, executive recruiter, that's the charter fishing boat where they know exactly where the reef is, where all the, they've got the resumes.
They got it.
So, okay. Hello, let's just go to somebody who's got all the information and let them hand deliver to you qualified candidates. Let them do all the work.
What salary level would you start using a service like that? I mean, you wouldn't use a service like that for middle management, or would you? Or
yeah,
lower?
I definitely would. Even look, we know the cost for a $10 an hour job is $3,000, right?
Okay.
For that employee. So maybe not, but if I owned a retail establishment, I would be very, very careful in the way I hired. And I'm going to give you some tips on ways to keep employees happy and ways to be sort of a better hirer, if that's a word. All right, so let me share with you a couple of places that little out-of-the-box ways to maybe find a good employee. First is a career fair. Everybody knows career fairs. That's where in your town, the local town says, oh, we're going to put together a bunch of booths and all the corporations are going to come bring your resumes. But there are now what we call virtual career fairs, where you could literally fill out a form online and you could visit other employees from your laptop, your iPhone, your iPad, and you could learn about these companies. And these companies can. And the great thing is, if you're an employer, your reach is far broader than just your local area of people who might get out on a Saturday afternoon to come to a career fair. So, when given the opportunity to sit at home, you may get thousands of more exposures, and that's all good.
Sure.
In-house networking events. Yeah, everybody knows that networking events are great for finding clients, but a lot of creative companies now are throwing what they call sort of casual networking events. So employees can bring their friends, and you can, as the friend, kind of get to learn what the company does, walk around, see what they look like, get the feel of the culture of the company, and meet those who are hiring. And it's a great way to inexpensively meet potentially good people. Because remember, birds of a feather, right? I mean, if I like you, the odds are I'll like your friends because they're going to be like you, I hope. Social media.
They're better than me.
Wow. There we go. Social media, right? But again, it's not just like putting up a message saying we're hiring. Let your employees, encourage your employees to share with their friends list that we're hiring. And because, again, my friends might not know that SoFlo Radio is looking for, whatever, right?
Right.
And yet, if I put that out there and said, I love this place, George is amazing, my show is great, whatever, and what a great environment, my friends are going to be more apt to want to talk to you than if you just put up a post and said, we're hiring.
Right.
Charity events. If you're looking for upper-level folks, it's been shown that many top corporate leaders find that they meet really high-quality individuals at these type of events. I'm going to go a little faster here because I just see what time it is. So always network when you're recruiting. Ask for referrals, from employees, from friends. We talked about use online hiring software. I do this all the time. I don't want to mention a name because they're not paying us a fee to plug them, but there are several software packages that you can pay a small monthly fee, and they will broadcast your hiring message out to dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens, 30, 40, 50, 100 websites that are hiring websites. And so your exposure becomes far more broad. Upload your job description to local college job boards. There are a lot of kids out there who just spent 4 years or maybe 5 of their life getting an undergraduate degree, and they're looking for something. They don't know where to look, but the schools have these job boards. So now you've hired the employee.
Got him.
Let's keep them, right? So how do you keep them happy and increase retention?
Threats of violence. No.
Okay, we're working on you, George.
Right.
So on average, just a typical employee turnover, just for the average corporation across the board, is 13%.
Okay.
13%. So think about that. Higher in some sectors, right? So let's talk about how to keep the employee turnover low. First of all, hire the right people at the right time. Be honest. I in preparation for this show, actually went out and I responded to several ads.
Okay.
And I talked to hiring managers as though I were looking for a position. And I had a guy yesterday who called me, and he goes, okay, this is the job. It's a sales job. This is how much you can make. But I'm telling you right now, you're going to have to be in here at 8:30, and on a couple nights a week, you're probably not going to leave till 9 or 10. There'll be breaks during the day. You can go home. You can do this or that. But we've got to call people on the West Coast. I just want to know, are you prepared to make that kind of commitment? Because if you're not, it's okay. I just don't want to start the process and have you tell me 2 days later you don't want to work till 9 or 10. But if you're willing to do what it takes to make this kind of money, and I really admired this gentleman for the way he did this. I thought to myself, you know what? Weed them out, man. Weed whack them. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Just get rid of them. And the ones that go, okay, I'm in, then we bring them in, right? But you have to set expectations right. Fire people quickly. I've seen way too many times where people get afraid to fire
You said
someone.
fire, and I thought, good, fire. I haven't threatened them with fire. That was
not fire like fire and
like,
water.
Give me ideas.
You know what? If at a certain point, there's old fish or cut bait, right? Sometimes
Right.
you just got to go, okay, cut the line.
Or like that fire.
You got to fire them quickly.
Like the
Sooner is
torch.
better. Got to stay current with your salary and your benefits, right? If you're feeling like you haven't given people raises or you're losing people to your competitors, you better find out what the competitor's offering. Is it money? Is it benefits? Is it a better work environment, et cetera? Encourage generosity and gratitude. A lot of companies today, they do things for the local economy. They do things for the local environment, whether it's Habitat for Humanity or raise money or whatever. When people work together, and they do it for a good cause, a common cause, there's a bond. And when that bond is there, then they feel like there's more of a reason to stay. Lori used to work for MasterCard, and she still has a jacket that she got when she went on a retreat. Where it was one of these several-day retreats where they went out and they did stuff together as team building. And that jacket means a lot to her because she remembers what she went through and also tells stories of people. Now, she's not with MasterCard anymore, but because she has her own company. But the point is, she loved that corporation. She always talks about it. Recognize and reward employees. I talk about that all the time, how important it is people work for recognition. It costs you nothing to have an Employee of the Month program or, put gold stars on the door or little things like that. But you know what? People love that stuff. So do it. Offer flexibility. We talked about study, I talked earlier about flexibility. In a recent study, between 75 and 80% of all managers and employees, 75% of managers, 80% of employees stated that they would like to have a flexible work arrangement, and that if they did, it would have a positive impact on their retention, flexible hours, locations, etc. Make employee happiness a priority. All right? It sounds simple, but think about it. Give an opportunity for development and growth. If there's no future, employees are going to leave, and they're going to leave for greener passages. And again, provide a vision. You got to give employees a sense of purpose and a meaning in their work. George, at the end of the day, people want to feel like they're contributing. Right? It's great to come in and do something, but if you're just going, yeah, that's my job, and all right, I got to get up, and I got to sit in traffic, and I got to get there, and I sit at my desk, and you don't really have any other reason for doing this than just the X dollars an hour you're making.
Right.
That's not a great way to live.
It's sad, and some of us, been there, done that. And that's why we're still in show business.
And I think that the last one is to demonstrate and to cultivate respect in the workplace. And that I don't care if it's the person sweeping the floors or bringing the mail or it's, the senior manager. At the end of the day, if I have seen this over and over and over again. Lori again mentioned to me she went to a store the other day and the salespeople were all sort of sitting in this. It was a retail store for some stuff that we're doing. We're doing construction in our home, and she walked in, and these guys were all sitting in their chair. Their arms were up, their feet were on the desk, and everyone was like, "Hey, sweetie, baby, what can we do for you?" That kind of thing. And she realized it came right from the top, and she walked out and she said, "You know what, guys, this is not the right attitude." And I'll tell you what, I was in here and I'm doing a big project, and I will not do business with you because your attitude. And so I hope you guys don't work on commission, because if you do, one of you just lost a really big sale. And you know what? So it's got to come from the top. Anyway, George,
Steve,
you're amazing.
Thank you.
Another week where the show
speaking of
went
retreat, you reminded me. Almost forgot. Shout out to Mark Anoff, who's at a retreat in Nepal. He's at a yogi ashram, learning how to breathe.
Well, Lori always says breathe, right? There's a lot of Lori today.
Thank you again for the soup, Lori.
Oh, thank you for the soup. Please, again, for those of you who are in the Palm Beach, Martin County, tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, Lori Gordon, health coach, certified holistic health coach, going to be speaking at Good Shepherd Episcopal Church, 400 Seabrook Road, Tequesta. My name is Steve Gordon, and you've been listening to CEOmanship on SoFlo Radio and Television.com.
SoFloRadio.com and SoFloTelevision.com.